Let's begin with updates on the Edo governorship election, where the Independent National Electoral Commission is set to begin the deployment of more than 5,000 bimodal voter accreditation systems and other sensitive materials on Thursday for the Edo State governorship election scheduled for this Saturday. Sensitive materials, including ballot papers and result sheets, arrived in Edo State on Wednesday via Benin Airport and were transported to secure storage facilities under tight security. This comes as the 17 political parties participating in the poll are slated to end their campaigns today. The All Progressives Congress candidate, Senator Monday Okpebholo Ighodalo of the People's Democratic Party and Olumide Akpata of the Labour Party are the leading contenders ahead of the ballot. In the meantime, a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress in Edo State has accused the state governor of spreading falsehood ahead of the upcoming governorship poll. He says that claims by the governor, Godwin Obaseki, that the federal government is using state powers to muzzle the People's Democratic Party and its candidates are false, mischievous, and misleading.
Why is Godwin Obaseki and the PDP now shouting blue murder? What has changed? He has accused all the institutions, the police, the INEC, and everybody being against him. I want to make it quite clear that he is facing election for the first time on his own. All the leaders that have been working for him, that brought him to power, he has abandoned all of them. That is what he's suffering. 90% of the leaders that left with him from APC to PDP to return him have left him. There's nothing like federal might. What he's experiencing is self-inflicted because he thought he was already home and dry, that he's now a master.
Now, News Central's correspondent Bettina Nwelih is on standby to give us updates on the situation of things in Edo State. Bettina, good afternoon to you. Hello, Bettina, can you hear me? All right, so I think we'll come back to Bettina in just a few moments. But joining us now also to discuss more on the election is Bukola Idowu. He is the executive director of the Kimpact Development Initiative. Bukola, welcome to News Central Now. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with looking at your expectations for the Edo State governorship election. What do you think we should anticipate seeing in the next few hours? It's 48 hours now till those elections. What do you think is on the table?
So I think the first thing is that we anticipate that the voters will come out, the citizens of Edo will come out and vote in the election. So we expect to see them coming out to vote in the election. Now, if they will come out in their large number, is another conversation entirely. But with what we have seen here in Edo, the INEC, there are 4 major preparations, and then we can assess their level of readiness for the election on Saturday. Number 1 is the INEC in terms of their readiness. Number 2 is the security agencies in terms of their readiness also for the election. Number 3 are the political parties, and then number 4 are the citizens. But if you ask me, the 4 categories of stakeholders I mentioned are all claiming they are ready for the election. But we expect to see that readiness translate into an each free election come on Saturday.
Now, do you think that the election will be free and fair? Are there any challenges that could hinder the success of this election? And that question is asked on INEC's side before we look at sort of the state of security and the sentiment around the election.
I think for me personally, and I think for also my organization, we have not raised our hope concerning this election because the indices and the indices and the context at which which this election is going to take place have not changed from what you have in Imo, Kogi, Bayelsa in the last election, and even what we have in 2023. Nothing has changed. Everything is still in place. Of course, if you look at this election, a particular political party has been crying sign of political arrest, federal might, and you've also seen other political parties also saying, look, the level has not been a level playing ground. And so for us, I think it is safer for us not to raise our expectation too high. But if you have a bit of progress, yes, we will celebrate it. But for us, I don't think we should expect probably a near perfect election.
So free and fair elections are not only the responsibility of INEC, we also have to look at the security situation, how safe people feel to come out. We've heard about how many ad hoc workers there are. What do we know about the police numbers or the security numbers, and even just this general sentiment around security for this election? There's been a conversation around potential cultism or cultists being involved in some form or fashion. So what do we know about the security state of mind of the people when it comes to the Edo governorship election on Saturday?
That is why I said we should not raise our expectation too high, because the aspect of election, credibility of an election, doesn't rest on INEC alone. So when you look at the security agencies we are talking about, they have a role to play, because if they fail in their responsibility, the whole election is also going to be in shambles. So what the police have told us now is that police are deploying 35,000 men, and they are expecting 8,000 from sister organization, agency. By sister agency, we are talking about the DSS, we are talking about the immigration, we are talking about the civil defense, we are talking about the road safety, correctional center. So all of them are involved in this election, and we are expecting 8,000 from them. Then police deploying 35,000. So all in all, in Edo, we are going to see about 43,000 security agency policing or securing this election. And one of the things you also need to know is that there is within the state, that what we call diminishing trust level. When it comes to the security agency and then the INEC itself. So the level of confidence among the citizen is not too high. So that alone is also a cause for concern. But when you look at what the police have done, they are, as of yesterday, they carried out raid into where they call the hideout of criminals for this election. Another thing we expect them to do is that how far have they been able to mob small and light arms, because you find out that this before the election, before this time, from January, with what we have tracked, this state is like a fertile ground for courtesan thriving here. So at what have they been able to do to stem that? Because they become a ready platform for political violence or election violence if that is not being curbed. But as it is today, the state is going to be policed and secured by 43,000 people, personnel for this election.
Before we wrap things up with you, I want to ask, what are the issues that are bringing Edo people to the polls on Saturday? And have we succeeded in making this an issues-based campaign? Aside from some FAPUs here and there from players involved, is this an issues-based campaign, and what the issues are that are bringing Edo people to the polls?
Okay, so I think on the issue-based campaign, I think from our tracking, we have seen issue-based campaign to be things around, I think it's around 55% when you analyze some of their campaigns and promises, and what narration they have been saying is around the issue. Dealing with the issues around 55%, and then the remaining 45% has to do with issue of personality attack. Attacking, not staying on the issues, slandering, mudsliding, attack, hate speech, and provocative speech. We have seen that. And for me, I keep saying that Edo will have even set an example for us if the candidate will have been able to go into debate, because we are looking at three strong candidates that this is likely going to be the best we will have seen in terms of debate in this country. Now think about the candidate of Labour Party going head to head in in a debate with the candidate of PDP, both of them lawyers of at that high caliber. One of them MBA president at some point, then one of them, a PDP candidate who have been able to sit on various boards. You can imagine the kind of intellectual contestation and the debate we will have had. I wish Edo people have even denied the country to witness such a thing. And then you're also looking at a sitting senator from APC who is also, we can say vast politically, being a sitting senator. We will have seen contest of idea, but Edo people have lost that opportunity to give us that kind of debate. But if you ask me, the rhetorics are there, and then you also have the rhetorics are worrying when you look at the the personality attack. This is not what we want to see. But coming to what is likely going to bring the people to the poll this time around, now there are about 3 things that are likely going to bring the people to the poll. Number one, the politics of identity is going to bring people to the poll, and which we have seen in Edo. So you have seen that people are saying, no, the governorship should come to the central this time around. So that kind of identity is going to bring people to the poll on Saturday. Number 2 thing that's going to bring people to the poll on Saturday is that because people, some of the gladiators also have something to prove. Oshiomhole has something to prove. Obaseki has something to prove in this election. So they are going to do all manners of mobilization they can do. Then the last thing that is going to bring people into the poll and which at the lower cadre is poverty, because this time around you cannot rule out people are ready to sell their votes because of the economic hardship in the state. If you recall, a few weeks ago, there are protests across the country on end bad governance, hunger protests. Now, Edo State happened to be one of the states that protest took place. So, and that is to let you know that the indices within Edo State also say, look, people are hungry, and in this election, and I tell people that, look, 1,000 naira will mean a lot to people. So one of the things we need to look at for that will bring people is that how many people are ready to sell their vote. And I'm afraid that the winner of the election may not be the best, but may be the person that spent the most in this election.
And that's an unfortunate way to end this conversation, but one we hope that you're not going to be a prophet, and we can see a difference here. Bukola Idowu, Executive Director of the Kimpact Development Initiative, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, away from Edo State, officials of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission on Wednesday night attempted to arrest the former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, at the Kogi State Governor's Lodge in the Asokoro district in the Federal Capital Territory. However, there was some resistance by security operatives at the Governor's Lodge as gunshots were heard in the air during the altercation. The entire area has been cordoned off, and movement around that area has also been restricted to only operatives of the EFCC and other security agencies stationed there. Unconfirmed reports say the former governor has now left the Governor's Lodge in the company of the incumbent governor of the state, Ahmed Ododo. Also, normalcy seems to have returned around the Kogi State Governor's Lodge after the attempt by the operatives to arrest Bello. The Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, has redeployed Police Commissioner Tunji Disu from the River State Police Command to the Federal Capital Territory FCT Command. The IGP moved the Commissioner of Police in Delta State, Abani Wanda Olufemi, to the River State Police Command, while the FCT CP, Peter Okwara, was moved to the Delta State Police Command. In a statement on Thursday, Force spokesman Muyiwa Adejobi said the redeployment was to strategically in place a police force well efficient for effective policing. Also, following the approval of the Police Service Commission, the IGP deployed 4 CPs as commissioners of police for Abia, Lagos, Ebonyi, and Akwa Ibom State Commands. I quote, the development includes the posting of CP Danladi Nda to Abia State Command, CP Olanrewaju Ishola Olawale to Lagos State Command, CP Antonia Adaku Uche Anya to Ebonyi State Command, and CP Festus Eribo to Akwa Ibom State Command. Governor Abba Yusuf of Kano State has dissolved the interim management committees of all 44 local government areas. The committees, which were formed to implement grassroots policies and programs, had a 6-month tenure. The governor commended the outgoing members for their dedication and assured them of future involvement. The local government affairs will now be overseen by the directors of personnel management until the local government election on October 26, 2024. The governor emphasized transparency and accountability in local governance. This development comes as Kano prepares for the upcoming local government election, which will bring in newly elected officials to take over local governance across the state. You're watching News Central now. We'll take a quick time out. When we come back, more stories from across here in Nigeria, across the continent, of course, across the world as well. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now, residents of Nigeria's capital, Abuja, have expressed anger and frustration over a lack of coordination in the distribution of the federal government's subsidized rice sales to citizens. Some of them say that despite queuing for about 3 consecutive days, citizens have besieged the sales point being coordinated by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Poverty Alleviation and have been unable to buy rice. Rice, which is a staple product consumed by many across the country, is being sold by the federal government for about 40,000 naira a bag compared to the current price in the markets, which is around 85,000 naira. News Central's Joshua Imarai brings the report from on the ground.
Anger and frustration on the faces of many residents. Despite arriving early at this rice sales point, many of them are turning on each other to vent out their frustration following a lack of coordination seen on ground. Many of them have converged here to benefit from the federal government's subsidized rice scheme. However, despite some of them visiting the sales point in the last 3 days and the long hours of waiting, it is evidently clear that their hopes will once again be dashed.
Since on Saturday, I was coming here, the same story, coming here to the same story. Now, the last time they're attending to staff. Instead of them, the staff supposed to get their own separate. Without, you see how people are waiting for just 1 bag of rice.
Government should have assigned this to MDAs. It will make it faster, easy, stress-free. The number of people here, they are just less, and they are unable to manage the crowd. Imagine by tomorrow next, by the time people believe, because the number you are seeing here, people have not yet believed that this is real. By the time they realize that it's true, there will be stampede.
Some of them are accusing government representatives of intentionally frustrating the process and having due disregard for citizens.
The agency handling this, yeah, they may be trying, but they are not doing it well. The process is hectic, and you see them bringing their people 1, 2, having side talks. I want to call it side hustle. I don't want to say they are hoarding or they are diverting. Well, I saw one bag of rice at the corner. I saw another one driving into the same premises. So I don't know where they are getting their rice from. But so far, with about maybe 500 or 600 people that are gathered here, I've not seen anybody with rice. They told us the server has shut down yesterday. Today, the process is slow. What is happening?
Despite repeated attempts, all efforts to contact the distribution director has been unsuccessful. The office in charge of the distribution has cited its unavailability to speak with journalists. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Former military head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, has expressed concerns over Nigeria's worsening economic situation, calling on the federal government to take immediate action. Receiving the leadership of the Campaign for Democracy and Human Rights in Minna, General Abubakar noted that the hardship is getting out of control, with many struggling to afford basic necessities. He advocated for collaborative efforts between federal, state, and local governments to alleviate the economic hardship. He also suggested that the government should flood communities with food and sell it at lower prices. On the proposed #EndBadGovernance protest, he emphasized the need for peaceful demonstrations, warning against violence and looting. Earlier, we were joined by a strategy expert, Dipo Oyewole, to discuss more on this.
With the results we have in the field, we say that they scored very, very poorly, unfortunately. And with regards to their interventions, yes, they are making attempts, but are they effective enough? No, they are not. effective enough. Unfortunately, this is a conversation that has been lingering for a couple of months now, and it keeps getting harder, keeps getting more difficult. But in terms of seeing effective strategies that they would put in place, I believe it was a couple of months ago, I was on this program and we discussed the possibility of having to have some regulation around the prices, because what we also found is that we have a lot of people who are retailers, who are wholesalers, who just go about hiking up prices unnecessarily for no reason whatsoever. There was a video that was in circulation on social media, I believe, a week or two ago, where a particular individual who is a retailer went to get cartons of spaghetti. And he said that the night before it was sold for, I think, 9,500. The morning after it was sold for 10,500. And they did that because they saw that the night before there was a lot of demand on it. And same stock, same everything, they had the price by 1,000 naira. Later in the day, the price had gone up. And he also said, okay, so what if he chose to sell these at 21,000 or 27,000? So those are the issues we're having right now. And I've long advocated that the government see how they can effectively use the local governments to see how to govern effectively.
Now to security matters, where the Nigerian army says that it has concluded plans to deploy additional troops to Benue State in order to contain rising cases of attacks by herdsmen on residents in the Gwar West local government area of the state. The sector commander of Operation Whirl Stroke, domiciled in the state, informed a joint session of the Supreme Council of Toshin traditional rulers and the socio-cultural organization as he comforted members of the community over persistent attacks in the area.
We are going to make serious effort, deployment in strategic locations, and we will need your support, especially the youth. And we will continue to work with you. We are here to serve you, and we assure you that we will put in our best.
We applaud the supporting roles and operations of the Operation Whirl Stroke, drafted to our land to assist in the task of the daunting security challenges since 2018. The OPS personnel have put in their best for us, but more is desired to be achieved.
Civil society organizations have called on the government of Plateau State to ensure justice is put in place, or a justice system rather, is put in place for a more peaceful society. The peace practitioners spoke at a one-day dissemination exercise of the report of a community-based participatory action research to promote socioeconomic interaction and cohesion in farmer-herder conflicts. News Central's Chizoba Anin-Onwe was there and now completes the report.
Spanning decades, farmer-herder clashes, attacks by unknown gunmen, banditry, land grabbing, cattle rustling, and drug abuse, among other social vices, have damaged the peaceful coexistence among the inhabitants of Plateau State. It is based on these vices that these peace builders are gathered here to foster solutions for lasting peace in the state.
Why can we not live with each other? That is why this activity is a wonderful one. The research, the efforts of Yeva is commendable, and I'm proud to be associated with the initiative.
I think we need to document our own stories of not just failures, of challenges, but also of successes that women have played in terms of bringing peace to our communities.
The civil society exists because government needs the backing. The civil society group will also be mounting a lot of pressure on them to see that our report also just go to the shelf. Our report is implemented.
Further buttressing their points, the civil society activists believe that if certain measures are put into consideration, then the bitterness and hostility in the land will be a thing of the past.
Government should take their rules. Their rules should be so very systematic in ensuring justice system.
We should try to have a more overarching understanding of what the problem is and how to deal with it.
The concept of community policing should be based on what our communities knew before. It shouldn't be about carrying arms. It should be about gathering intelligence.
Governor Caleb Mutfwang, represented at the event, says his administration will stop at nothing in supporting peace efforts in the state.
This is indeed a best practice. It's a best practice that will help us pull down the walls of division, friction, hatred that we artificially have mounted for ourselves for just no reason. So this is to say the government is intentional about we working closely.
Riom local government area of Plateau State has experienced several conflicts, usually of ethnic and religious characters, and more often of a violent nature. Hence, the case study for this event, which Yava says is workable in other council areas in the state. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyowe.
The Central Bank of Nigeria has announced that its 297th Monetary Policy Committee meeting will be held on September 23rd and 24th, 2024. The two-day event is scheduled for the bank's headquarters in Abuja. According to a statement from the Apex Bank on Wednesday, the meeting will focus on reviewing the country's economic and financial conditions and determining the appropriate monetary policy direction for the short to medium term. A major question on the lips of many has been the negative impact of another hike on business and investment opportunities. Now, Nigeria's Minister of Information has met with officials from the U.S. Embassy over issues related to press freedom. This was as he received a delegation from the U.S. Embassy in Abuja led by the Ambassador Richard Mills, where they also expressed concerns over fake news and disinformation, saying that their effects are detrimental to the development of any society.
We talked about misinformation, techniques, and all that stuff. We discussed about that. We all believe collectively that there's no way you can build a better society when you promote fake news and you don't take the issue of misinformation and disinformation serious. Even in the Nigerian government's commitment to our commitment to press freedom, and we continue to work to ensure that the Nigerian press becomes even freer, and all those gray areas we talked about, we work on them and ensure that at the end of the day, all countries are on the same page.
As we got to fight disinformation, problem many countries are facing, especially democracy. And the Minister and I shared some thoughts and ideas on that. So that's why I'm here today with my team, and it was a very good discussion with the Minister.
All right, you're watching News Central now. Let's take a quick time out. There's more news coming your way right after this. As the news resumes, let's give you an update on the aftermath of the Maiduguri flood. Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu has paid a sympathy visit to the government and people of Borno State over the flood incidents that affected over 1 million people. She was represented by the wife of the Vice President, Nana Shetima. Tinubu assured of the federal government's support in alleviating the sufferings of those who were victims of the floods.
We all pray Almighty Allah to grant you the courage, the wisdom for you to navigate these challenges. And inshallah, I believe you're equal to the task. And inshallah, Allah will going to grant our prayers and your secret prayers for you to take Borno to the highest level.
The concern and commitment of the federal government of Nigeria to the growth and development of Borno State, and indeed that of Nigeria, need not to be overemphasized. The chairperson of the Redeployment Initiative, please rise, I was also the wife of the president.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian government has issued a flood alert following the release of water from Cameroon's Lagdo Dam. The Director General of the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, Umar Mohammed, announced that the release will be gradual with no major flooding expected. However, states including Adamawa, Taraba, Kogi, and Benue are advised to prepare for potential impact. In 2022, water releases from the Lagdo Dam caused devastating floods in Nigeria, leading to 603 deaths and the displacement of 1.4 million people. Mohammed explained that the current water flow, starting at 100 cubic meters per second, could increase over the next 7 days. The releases will be carefully managed to prevent overwhelming the Benue River system. Earlier, we were joined by climate change expert Abiola Oshuniyi to discuss this.
Back on historical lane. So we had flooding generally around that axis, 2012, 2018, and 2022 was something significant that a significant number of states had that flooding come in from the dam, and like you rightly highlighted, about 33 states had the flooding killing significant amounts of persons across the country and affecting over 1.4 million people. But one aspect of it that we often quickly do not recall is that this dam was the Lagdo Dam was constructed and completed in 1982, right? So we had over 30 years to have prepared for this kind of incidents as a country to manage the aftermath of this. So in short, we're not actually prepared for whatever is supposed to happen. The bilateral agreement says that Nigeria should have built our own version of the dam that is supposed to contain the water that is supposed to be in Adamawa, the Dancing Hausa Dam. Until date, there's not been anything significant that should have been like, the containing.
Now we head back to our conversation on the Monetary Policy Committee meeting that is slated for next week. Joining me now is Management Consultant and Investment Advisor, Fife Banks. Fife, welcome to News Central Now. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Let's quickly look at this. Now, how do the changes in interest rates, whether rising or falling, directly affect the returns on fixed income investments such as government bonds or treasury bills in Nigeria, especially knowing how oversubscribed we saw Nigerian government bonds just last week?
Apparently, the oversubscription came from investors' positive outlook on the kind of returns they will get on the government securities, because there is actually a positive correlation between the rising interest rate and the returns that you have on fixed income instrument. Simply put, the higher the interest rate, the higher the returns on government securities will be. And when interest rate falls, the return on government securities, on bond, on treasury bills would also fall, leading to a reduction in demand for such securities. So people begin to look for alternative investment that have, higher returns, and, they can go back to equity, and maybe even venture capital, for startups and what have you. But, there is always positive correlation.
All right, you've gotten partially into my next question, which is also looking at sort of the key risk and the opportunities for investors in Nigeria when we see these interest rates rises, especially for sectors like real estate, manufacturing, and financial services. So just quickly take us through the risk and even more of the opportunities as they may be.
Fantastic. So the risk, cuts across all sectors, not even singling out those, three sectors you've mentioned: real estate, financial services, and manufacturing. The risk would include reinvestment risks, for instance, which has to do with the investor not being able to get, cash flow to reinvest at the rate, at which they invested initially. All right. You also have default risk, because then you see that the investor is not able to get the money out from, for instance, government can default, right? Even if it's a corporation, the corporation can default due to us, so these are the major risks, that, however, there are opportunities. Like I mentioned earlier on, once interest rates rises, returns are expected to rise. So there is this expected higher returns on investment. And of course, people can diversify their portfolio, knowing fully well that interest rate affects pretty much every transaction. It has become a benchmark for all transactions. The interest that you get, the return on your investment is supposed to be higher. What happens is that people, would also want to, like I mentioned, diversify their portfolio, and you probably see some foreign investors, even coming in as a result of the fact that the interest rates are high now, return on investment are high now. So because, as you know, capital is always looking for where it can be best optimized.
Absolutely.
Right? So yes, that's one of the opportunities.
Okay, so in relation to that, I know foreign direct investment, Forex is a conversation we constantly have almost in every business sense. So when we look at these interest rate fluctuations, what influence or what bearing do they have on Nigeria's FDI, and what sectors might also be particularly impacted?
Yes, foreign investors, are watching, observing, and seeing what is happening in this space. For instance, like the oversubscription that you mentioned, will kind of incentivize them to want to begin to look keenly, at the opportunities in this economy. But bear in mind that there are other factors, affecting foreign direct investment, apart from just high interest rate or the expected, high return on investment. Sometimes is the risk appetite of the foreign investors. Sometimes it's the economy and the security of their investment. Sometimes it has to do with their preference. In Nigeria, typically over the years, and in fact what we see in the market, I've just returned from the US, looking for investment, and what we see is that most people are still interested in the Nigeria oil and gas sector, as opposed to other sectors of the economy that are coming up. Yes, we expect foreign direct investment to impact still the oil and gas and energy sector, maybe a bit of steel, because Nigeria itself as a government, we are now, concentrating effort. In fact, recently, I believe that the ministry, recorded a win in terms of getting about $1.5 billion. Manufacturing will probably not get as much until our energy, is more stable. Of course, the financial services, they are the masters of the game. They will still be able to attract, investment, and the financial sector is doing very well. Interestingly, even as other sectors, are kind of struggling. So yes, you can look at, investment coming into those sectors, maybe a bit of real estate from Nigerians in diaspora.
All right.
Who want to,
who want to invest at home. Yes.
Investment, exactly.
All right, before I let you go, very quickly, we saw that yesterday the Federal Reserve in the United States slashed interest rates by 0.5 point, which is an aggressive start to the first easing campaign that has been experienced in 4 years. And the Fed tends to lead the way. We've seen how other people and other central banks have seemingly followed suit. In just about 30 seconds, what do you think the trend might be, or the impact of the Fed starting a slashing for the first time in 4 years? Just 30 seconds, please.
First of all, as the elections in the US are approaching, I want to think that this is not an election, strategy to be able to gather votes, for the government of the day. But then, if you look across the world, the economy is tight, across the world. So the US leading the way, as you know, is quite influential. We're going to see other nation states, following suit. And in Nigeria also, there's a meeting that the CBN wants to have on the monetary policy next week. I think we should also take a cue, from that, because if you go on the street, you realize that, the average citizens are really bearing the brunt, of the economy.
All right, and a little bit of a prophecy there. We'll see if it bears fruit and if the CBN's Monetary Policy Committee decides to follow what may be a trend or may just be an outliner in these dimes. Fife Banks, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much.
All right. As the news continues after this break, at least 12 soldiers killed in Niger raid. We'll tell you more after this. Stay with us. The news continues in West Africa, where a series of deadly attacks have left at least 12 soldiers dead and 30 wounded in Niger Republic. The army announced this on state-run television on Wednesday. The violence erupted across multiple regions, including Talabere and Diffa, where extremist groups like Boko Haram and the Islamic State are active. In the latest attack, a new resistance group called the Patriotic Movement for Freedom and Justice claimed responsibility for a raid on a military outpost in Agadez. The Nigerian army says it's pursuing the attackers who are fleeing towards the Libyan border. The country has seen a surge in violence since the military coup in July, with over 1,500 civilians and soldiers killed in the past year. A decade after their children vanished, the parents of 43 Mexican students presumed to have been massacred hope that a new president will finally reveal the truth about this tragedy. The case of the students from the Ayotzinapa Teacher Training College in the southern state of Guerrero is considered one of the worst human rights atrocities in Mexico, where a spiral of drug-related violence has left more than 100,000 missing. Their anger is expected to peak on September 26th with the annual protest march in Mexico City, days before Sheinbaum takes oath as Mexico's first female president on October the 1st.
Estos 10 años que han pasado han sido de mucho dolor, no solo para nosotras que somos jóvenes, sino para generaciones pasadas. Han sido 10 años de lucha, de buscar justicia. Y esperemos que pues en este nuevo sexenio pues se tenga un poco más de comprensión con todos nuestros casos, los casos que no han sido cumplidos, que han quedado impunes.
Decir es fácil 10 años, pero de caminar, de luchar, de exigir, no ha sido tan fácil, nos ha costado mucho trabajo. Pero pues aquí estamos por el amor que le tenemos a cada uno de nuestros hijos, nos mantenemos de pie porque todas las mamás y papás que nos hemos organizado es por la presentación con vida de nuestros hijos.
Bueno, para nosotros estos 10 años representa, para muchos de nosotros es la impunidad, la injusticia, la falta de compromiso, la falta de seriedad y falta de avances importantes en esta investigación.
Delta State has emerged champions of the 8th National Youth Games after extending its lead on the medals table. With 42 gold, 14 silver, and 19 bronze medals, athletes and officials of Team Delta were in a celebration mood at the Stephen Keshi Stadium, Asaba, on Wednesday. As at yesterday evening, Team Lagos had overtaken Edo in the battle for the second spot. Team Edo had maintained the second position from day 2 of the competition, but dropped to third on Tuesday evening. While Team Lagos had 16 gold, 12 silver, and 16 bronze medals, Edo had 15 gold, 7 silver, and 17 bronze as of Wednesday evening. Bayelsa State finished in the 5th spot yesterday behind Team Kwara. The United States Women's National Basketball Association WNBA side Atlanta Dream have signed the Tigress guard Ezinne Kalu to a 7-day hardship contract, the organization announced on Wednesday. The 5'8" guard brings a wealth of international experience, most recently leading the 2024 Nigerian Olympic team past the group stage in Paris earlier this year. Kalu averaged 18.5 points per game in Paris, ranking her 4th in the category, behind only Emma Messman, Haja Wilson, and Satal Sabili. Kalu's standout performance came against Australia, where she led the Tigress to an upset win, scoring 19 points with 5 assists, 5 rebounds, and 3 steals. Dream teams have produced 11 WNBA All-Stars, achieved 3 first-place regular season finishes, earned 9 playoff bids, and made 3 WNBA Finals appearances. And that's all the news we have for you at this hour. But before we go, let's take another quick look at the major stories. INEC has deployed 5,000 BVAS, 18,000 ad hoc workers in Edo State. EFCC attempts to arrest Yahaya Bello at Kogi Governor's Lodge in Abuja. And we also told you that at least 12 soldiers were killed in a Niger raid. Don't forget to send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. Watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Once again, many thanks for watching. I'm Tolulope, Adeleru-Balogun. Do have a good one.